Hi, good morning, class, and good morning, Professor Fajardo. Well, for us, it's a privilege to be here presenting to you this morning, and I hope that you may enjoy our presentation. Paula, Angie, and I conform this team. Okay, let's begin. I'll be talking to you a little bit about the process of language acquisition. What is that? It's an interesting question, though. Well, language acquisition is a process by which we human beings learn language. We acquire words, structures, and we learn to speak a language and create meaningful interaction with other human beings. But there is a question, or there are many questions, but I would like to say one. Do we learn languages in the same way and at the same level? Certainly not. There are two types of language acquisition. There are first language acquisition and second language acquisition. Well, first language acquisition refers to a process by which a baby or a person as he is growing old acquire his or her first native language. Whereas the second language acquisition process is the one by which we acquire a second or third or fourth language besides our native one. Just like in this case, I am a Colombian, I was born and raised here, and I am talking to you in English, so I'm using my second language, pero también lo puedo hacer en español. This is what I wanted to tell you, the first and second language acquisition processes. On the other hand, there are also some disorders of semantic cognition in different neuropsychological conditions, and they are the result from diverse areas of brain damage and may also have different underlying causes. Well, these disorders are the result of some damages in the brain. These disorders are known as semantic impairments, such as dyslexia, dementia, or aphasia. These are the result of some processes different from the ones that we've been talking before, like first and second language acquisition processes. These are some processes through which we may learn to speak, learn a language, or acquire one language, but these ones are pretty different, causing trouble, which I have just mentioned, like dyslexia and so on and so forth. Aphasia is an impairment of language affecting the production or comprehension of speech and the ability to read or write. Aphasia is always due to injury to the brain, most commonly from a stroke, particularly in older individuals. But brain injuries resulting in aphasia may also arise from head trauma, from brain tumors, or from infections. Dyslexia is also known as a reading disorder. It is characterized by trouble with reading despite normal intelligence. Different people are affected to varying degrees. Problems may include difficulties in spelling words, reading quickly, writing words, sounding out words in the head, pronouncing words when reading aloud, and understanding what others read. Often these difficulties are first noticed at school, when someone who previously could read loses their ability. It is known as alexia. The difficulties are involuntary, and people with this disorder have a normal desire to read and learn.
Hi everybody, I'm Angie, and I would like to say something about neurolinguistics. Well, this is a branch of the huge tree of linguistics. Neurolinguistics worries about the way we produce or understand language. Charles Clifton gathered some models that can light us about language comprehension. Number one is that the listeners map the acoustic signal onto representations they know. This supports the cohort model by the same author, Marcel Wilson, that claims that every word has a uniqueness point that is the first phoneme in every word. So at the time that we listen that phoneme, we can recognize the word that could match with the input. The number two is that the listeners have words candidates to match with the semantic information associated with the recognition process. So we have those words that looks like the sound that we have heard, and we choose that word in order to match with that sentence. And the number three, try to use part of the last two and add the linguistic knowledge that we have. This knowledge affects the initial stages of speech perception. But this is about words. What about sentences? Well, the connectionist models describe how people use all relevant information to quickly evaluate the full range of possible interpretations of a sentence. But this is just one theory about how can we understand the sentences. This theory is according to MacDonald and Seidenberg. But I would like you to think, how can you produce your sentences, or how can you understand every single thing that you listen today? Bye.
In these pictures, we just want to illustrate the way our brain completes some mental associations of any word with a more syntactic, semantic, and conceptual background, as much as we learn and keep using that word or grammatical construction. Definitely, it has to follow a pre established order, as in the picture, just because that will allow the participants or language users not only to contextualize but also to interact with other people through using these words. Okay.
Good morning. In this section, I will explain you another important focus of neurolinguistics, such as two relevant physiological mechanisms that explain the way our human brain starts producing the language. First, I will talk about brain imaging. It refers more to brain scanning, not only with the purpose of getting the image, but also the function, the structure, and even the pharmacological aspect. But what is pharmacology? This is the study of drugs and medication, just with the purpose of understanding also the way our nervous system works. In one hand, it intends more to look for the structural imaging, and on the other one, it seeks a functional perspective. Second mechanism is the electrophysiology. It actually deals with a more psychological framework because it measures the electrical activity in our brain, actually with the neurons. So therefore, a doctor might be able to determine the way in which neural disorders happen just by looking into our brain's activity. Finally, I want to provide you a very practical example of neurolinguistics that is quite connected to our interest with the study of discourse analysis. In this case, I will refer to specifically nonverbal behavioral assessment through eye contacts, based on a research study conducted by Gordon and Fleischer in 2011. They analyzed primarily the modes of processing information in our brain just using three important aspects such as visual, auditory, and kinesthetic factors. In this specific study, they just realized how our brain processes information as important as it is eye contact. I will give you three scenarios so that you get to understand this specific study. First, if I put my eyes up, as in this occasion, I'm just probably trying to add more information and visualize something that is not completely clear for me. Second, if I move my eyes to the right side, like in this way, It means that I'm just adding new information that probably I haven't heard before. As it is for the first time, my brain is just trying to connect all the ideas at a time. And finally, the last example is just if I put my eyes down in this way. If I put my eyes down, probably I'm just experiencing new emotions or feelings, and therefore, in that specific order, we can visualize visual, auditory, and kinesthetic approaches. Thank you so much. It was all my pleasure.
As a conclusion, I want to provide you some more examples that are not necessarily connected to language acquisition. Let's think about, for example, a doctor, physician, or a specialist who might be able, just through the study of neurolinguistics, be able to identify a tumor or an injury in a person. And what about if it is possible for this person to maybe diagnose metabolic or more complex lesions or diseases such as Alzheimer? Did you know that is a very hard condition for most of the times elderly population? And however, as a conclusion, it is not only reduced also to the study of the brain, because this specific specialist might be able to analyze as well the heart, muscles, eyes, and the stomach, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much.